Okay, welcome everybody. Here's take two of the intro to SkyGlass. This one is going to have mouse movements and stuff you can actually see, so appreciate your patience as I get all this gear worked out. Okay, so today we're going to do just a general introduction to SkyGlass, the interface, the UI, how to switch modes and things like that. The assumption is that you've already purchased a subscription or downloaded the free trial, installed your app, created your login, and are into SkyGlass. So you should be able to easily get to this screen here. Also note that the current version number will always be listed under the logo, and your license end date should be listed at the bottom of this welcome screen. Okay, so let's get into SkyGlass. All right, so this should be basically how you see it when you first launch SkyGlass with some of the defaults. And let me just say a couple of quick things about the UI overall. First thing you're going to want to do, depending on how big your screen is, etc., is find this little square arrow box looking thing at the corner of the main button stack and click drag it up. And you'll notice that that's going to resize all elements of the UI and make things a little bit easier to see depending on your resolution. So I'm going to leave it up a little higher than I usually do, but hopefully that'll be really easy to see. Okay, so another quick introduction before we get into it about the two different modes that SkyGlass has. Basically, you've got a standard mode and a mill mode. Mill mode is the default, and it has the shield icon here in green. If you toggle that off, a few things will happen. First thing, you'll notice that behind the main logo, the color will change. So that's kind of a visual indicator of what mode that you're in is behind that icon. Switch it back, mill mode is going to be orange and standard mode is blue. Next thing you'll notice is that you've got a new declutter panel that'll pop up here. And that will be able to toggle on or off standard aircraft, which are commercial aircraft. Well, basically, it's any aircraft that it's not tagged or marked as a military or masked. It's going to be left as a normal. Then you've got your military aircraft, masked aircraft, and then this is the emergency scanner, which will designate any aircraft that is showing as an emergency with a different icon, etc. Maybe we'll see one of those today. Maybe not. Okay. So next thing you'll notice is you've got a distance slider here, and that's going to determine when you're in standard mode. This determines how far your search radius is when you're going to pull for aircraft, centered around the home location. Right now, the default is home located in the center of the United States, simple USA. But if you want to change your location, this is how you do it. This is the input panel here, the location input panel. This is a natural language interpreter. You can type in anything you want, any city name or maybe a airport code like San Francisco. Hit enter on your keyboard, wait for the latitude and longitude to update so that way you know that the reverse geocode actually worked or the geocode actually worked, and then click on that target and that'll zoom you right to that location. All right, so let's do that again. DFW, pop over to Dallas, wait for the lat-long update, and then there you are. All right, so let's stay here because we know we got a lot of military traffic around this area. So first thing I'm going to do is dial in my search radius. So depending on what you're doing, this is important. If you're going to be loading all standard aircraft as well, that can be a lot of numbers. So if your computer doesn't have a lot of RAM or isn't quite up to the challenge, you want to make sure that search radius is something manageable for your machine. All right, so 200 should be good for now. Let me dial the map up a little bit more. Okay, good. I was hoping this would happen. So I zoomed in a little bit and you can see that the map tiles got all wonky. And this is kind of a known issue, but we have an easy fix for it. There's a little button here, 2 arrows in a circle. Click on that, and that will reset the map. You may need to hit that location target again, and now you're back to square one. All right, so we've got our Search radius, let's even go up a little bit higher. All right. And then this, depending on where you are and what you're doing, if you find yourself kind of way off where you want to be and you don't know where you are, this icon here, the square arrows, this will reset your camera position and rotation right back to home. All right, so you can see now we've got Dallas-Fort Worth dialed up. The search radius is manageable. Let's put that at 100 and let's load some aircraft. Click on the big blue icon or the big main icon and you'll see a bunch of aircraft start to load up. All right. So another thing with regard to the interface is this group of sliders. This first one here is the height adjustment slider, and this is really part of the magic of SkyGlass. So when this slider is all the way down, that represents actual altitude. And when you're zoomed in on the map, this can make, fair amount of proper sense. When you're zoomed out, everything's just so flat, it really there's no meaning to it. So that's why I created this height adjustment slider, which is basically squishes and stretches the relative position vertically of all the aircraft. So this way you can really easily, quickly get the separation of all the different altitudes. So let me zoom in again so it makes a little bit more sense. And I'm going to bring this height adjustment slider down to something more realistic or manageable till we can see it on screen. There we go. Okay, a couple of quick notes about how to move around now that we've got some aircraft loaded up. You can see my icon or my mouse cursor here. With a 2-button mouse with a scroll wheel, the left button, click and drag, will translate you around. The right button is where you rotate your camera POV or point of view. All right. Now the scroll wheel on your mouse will basically move you in and out closer and farther away from that center target location of your camera. So let me show you that. So, all right, you'll see this purple target icon here. This is actually the center of the camera's rotation. So you can notice that. And zooming in and out, just that will always be in the center. And that you can use that to, change how wide your pan or dolly is around the scene. Okay, so that's the basics of moving and rotation. Let's talk about some of the on-screen elements. All right, so let's hover over one of these and you'll notice a few things. First of all, you're going to get a pop-up panel with some of the basic details, which mimics the HUD up here on the top right. Okay, and the HUD is broken out like this. You've got the aircraft type shortcode here. This is the transponder, what it's actually squawking right now, the transponder code. This is the call sign of the aircraft, not the tail number, but the call sign. You'll notice military aircraft, this call sign changes all the time. Most normal aircraft or non-commercial aircraft, they'll be the same as their registered tail number, which is down here. If there's a country that's reported, that will be in this spot there. And then in magenta, this is the real identifier for that aircraft. This is the transponder hexadecimal code, what's often referred to as the ICAO or hex code. And that is the only thing that will actually maintain the unique identifier for that aircraft. That doesn't change over time. Call sign will change over time, squawk, etc. All right, so next thing is this bottom section, which is the telemetry. We've got the height and altitude, the height in feet, altitude, change in altitude, speed, and direction, heading. This lower section here, this is a bit of a fingerprint panel. You can turn that on and off there. By default, it's on. This will look up the type of aircraft with a little bit more detail and the manufacturer. And then this one is the actual location. So it'll pinpoint the latitude and longitude, but also show you the reverse geocode of, if you were to drop a pin straight down from that aircraft, that's where it is at that point in time. All right. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you, if the aircraft has been, photographed and uploaded to PlaneSpotter, it will show here. If you click on that image panel, you get a little bit of a larger image. And then if you click on the eye, that will actually bring you to the Plane Spotter web page for more detail. We won't do that now. All right. All right, so let's do a couple more things. Let's switch modes. All right, so important thing to know when you're switching modes is that you're going to want to clear the screen or burn everything so that you don't have traffic that's not updated mixed in with traffic that's been updated. So meaning if I just go into mill mode here and load the traffic, I'll get a bunch of traffic, but this one will go away. It's kind of mixed in, and this part's not going to get updated. So we'll want to burn. That's going to clear everything, and then you can load up. All right, so I'm going to make these icons a little bit larger with this slider here. I'm going to back the map zoom out. All right, now you can see all of CONUS, and I'm going to make that height adjustment slider even bigger, so now we can really see a separation of all the flight levels, etc. Okay, another thing to note about mill mode is military mode loads all traffic worldwide, anything that's marked as military worldwide. So if we map zoom out completely, you'll see, you can kind of see all the different traffic, Australia, Europe, etc., etc. Okay, when you're in standard mode, then you really only load based on the search radius, unless you click that all button. We'll get into that in probably another video. Okay, so now we're in mill mode. A few more things about the interface. Let me go back into mill mode, sorry about that, and reload the traffic. Okay, so let me walk you through some of the buttons in the descriptors here. This will collapse the auxiliary button stack here for a little cleaner user interface. This brings you back to the login panel. This is our preferences panel. I'll get into a little bit more of that later. Here's where you can take a screenshot. This is where you disable or enable the pop-up help, which is on by default. And this is your change location panel. Now, when you're moving in and out of mill mode, the input and search radius panel will go away, but you can activate that manually if you want to. Okay, so a little bit more about the auxiliary panel here. This toggles the sliders on and off. I usually just keep those on. This is where we can change our map style. This is my favorite map style. And there's another big reload map button in case you need to find that. This is the same functionality as this little guy here. Okay. We talked about this one already. This brings your your camera back to the home position and right back to center. All right. This we'll get into a little bit later. This is our Typelist panel, the watch list, and flight history panel. Flight history is definitely more an advanced topic. We'll get into that a little bit later. These are controlling the refresh. If you want to go into auto refresh mode, you click on that. That's going to pop up another panel, which gives us our timing. You can move that out to 2 minutes or as low as just a few seconds. Depending on the mode that you're in, you want to tune that based on your computer. Meaning if you're, it takes 15 seconds to load all the traffic, you're going to want to have that refresh more than that. Okay. All right. So we'll leave that on. And you'll notice we've got two progress wheels here. When auto refresh is on, the outer wheel will count down, and then which is in blue, and then the inner wheel, that is kind of like a progress bar. That's going to show what's loaded. Now in mill mode, things load pretty quickly unless you've got a bunch of other things activated like traces. So this one's going to pop pretty fast, but well, let's do that. Let me finish this topic first. So if something is loading or any progress is happening and you want to arrest that, just click on stop. Okay, if you want to burn like we did before, this is going to clear all the traffic. All right, and then to bring any traffic back, click on that. There we go. You can see that progress bar fill in as I was painting all the targets. Okay. Now in this next row, this is how you toggle on or off the traces. So let's play around with that. You'll notice another panel pops up, and this is the trace depth. Basically how far back you want to look in time, just 30 minutes or up to 24 hours. Keep in mind, these traces are quite heavy with data. The data is captured every 5 seconds and recorded. So when we pull a trace, it's showing every 5 seconds the position of that aircraft, back in time. And, one trace of an hour is probably more detail and information than all of the mill traffic loaded now. So let's play around with that. Let's grab this guy, click on the trace, and you can see we've got it in the last 6 hours. It's touched down and then kind of mid-flight. All right, so this middle slider will adjust all of the icons and the traces. You'll notice that trace will get thick or thin depending on that. So that's another way you can tune. Let me get another couple traces up here. Let's see if we can find that NATO bird that's flying. No, looks like he's not up at the moment. All right, let's see what he's doing. All right, a little bit of pattern work there. Bring that slider down a little bit. You can really see more of the detail of that. Okay, good. I hope these mouse movements and everything are tracking well on screen. All right. So when you click on an aircraft and the traces are activated, it'll draw that trace. If you click on it again, it'll remove it. So that's an easy way to remove it, the trace that you've just painted. If you want to remove all traces, just turn them off, and that'll turn them all off. And you can turn that back on and start painting more if you want. All righty. Last thing I'm going to cover here is this jumper. Basically, it's a quick way to change your home location. And you'll notice it's got this kind of a double setup here. So let me double click on the map, and that will move the jumper to that location and center your camera. And it's also going to pull the latitude and longitude and then do a reverse geocode of that specific spot. Okay. And so if we just double click or click, and then you'll see the bottom target will now be co-located with the center of the camera position. Now, if we click on that teardrop, which turns green, that is going to change the home location and set it to where we jump to. So now we see we've got all three icons sort of ganged up. So let me separate them a little bit. Let me double click here. Okay, so now you can see the camera center is here. Here is our home location, and then here's the jumper location. If you click on the bottom target, which is flat to the surface, it's going to bring the camera and the jumper together. And again, click on the center, and that's going to bring all three together. Okay, so I find this a nice way to just quickly move around the map. So I use the jumper, like double click over here, and I can quickly move. Same thing, I can scroll way out, double click on an area, and then zoom back in with my mouse. And you can see that's kind of a fast way to move around. Again, you can bring in your location input and then type in anything you want and then click. If you know a specific location, this will also take, by the way, zip codes. I'm not sure about area codes, but almost anything you throw at it, if it can kind of interpret it, it will try and then do a geocode lookup for you. So like 90210. Oh, I guess that didn't happen, did it? . 90210. I thought the zip code would work. Huh, well, I'll have to look into that. 857. Oh, that one worked. That's in Tucson. I thought the zip codes worked. Anyway, all right. What else can we cover? Cover the jumper, traces. All right, let me grab one example. This is, let's get something with an actual call sign here. RCH82. Okay, let me burn everything and walk you through the basics of searching. Let me turn that off. Okay, so the search panel, basically you can search in 4 different ways. You can search on the call sign, which we're going to do, search by the hex code if you've got it, the tail number, or the transponder squawk code, which is kind of an interesting way to do it. So let's put this one, actually I forgot the name of that. It was RCH something. Let's grab it again. Oh, let's just go SAM 480. Okay, so I'm going to burn, so clear the field. I'm going to type in SAM 480, hit that button, and you'll see it will go search for that aircraft and paint it its location, its current location. Now, this is one enhancement that I'll definitely be working on. If it's not on screen, it's not going to position your camera to see it. So if you do a search and you know it's there, but you can't see it, you may want to just kind of scroll out or look around for it. I will be making that enhancement so that when you search and it does have a successful return, it'll bounce your camera right to it. All right. By the way, this jumper also determines whether if you click on an aircraft, it jumps to that aircraft or not. Meaning if I turn that jumper off and click on it, it doesn't move the camera. If it's on, then that'll pop your camera or pop the camera to that location. All right. All right, so let me show you one other little quick interesting thing. So let's put in 1200, which is the, if you don't know, that's the transponder code for general aviation, anything that's not being flight followed or tracked on radar with the FAA. All right. Oop, we got a little thing going on. Let me stop for a second. Burn. Let's get out of mill mode. Standard mode. Okay, I think the mill mode and the search was wonking it up a little bit. So let's try that again. All right, we're cleared. Got 1200 in the squawk. Search on squawk. There we are. So now that's going out and loading. Oh, there's 1,000 aircraft right now that are squawking 1200. So an interesting way to do it. You'll notice though, all these aircraft are going to be pretty low flyers. So the height adjustment slider isn't going to do too much, but it is something interesting to check out if you want. All right, let me stop that. I'm going to burn again. Turn off the search panel, go back into mill mode, reload, and cover the last thing, which is the details that you can pull up on all craft on the screen. So this governs the icons. If you turn that off, this will just give you the aircraft profiles. All right, and that shows the actual position of the aircraft. Now these profiles have 3 different colors, either green, red, or teal blue. Green means it's climbing, it's ascending. You can see that by the HUD, it's 1,500 feet per minute right now. Red icon will be descending, going down 1850, and blue is going to be level flight. All right, so let's bring those icons back. Now, this will toggle on and off all the different type codes. And again, if these are too big, you can scale, so you can kind of, tune this to make it more meaningful for you. You can also bring up the call signs and the telemetry, all the basic, most of the stuff that's on the HUD. All right, and yeah, dial it in however you want. One way to sort of help declutter if things are getting a little too complicated here is use your jumper, bring your home location, and then zoom in. And that basically will move everybody, relatively out, farther out. You may want to bump the icons back up so everything's readable. And now you can get a real clear view on what's going on. Okay, and again, we got a little bit of a wonky map, so let's reset the map and bring it home. There we go. Okay. One last thing about, or a few last little bits about the UI here. Let's go clockwise. So top left-hand corner, this is going to give you your real time. This is actual time in UTC. And the next to that's going to be wherever the home location is set to right now. And then a quick basic weather lookup of the home location. Right-hand corner, we've got a summary of the types of aircraft that were just loaded in the last batch of or query. Then we've got our HUD, heads-up display about the aircraft detail. One other thing to note about the octagon here and the icon, this octagon is kind of like a compass face. So where you see that aircraft pointing is basically its cardinal direction. So this is kind of heading north. This is heading, southeast. This one's going a little bit northwest. So that's how you can quickly get that sort of visual reference on where it's going and what it's doing. Okay. All right. And now we've talked mostly about all these icons, and we'll come back to the bottom here. This is going to give you a quick readout of the last thing that just happened. So if it's gone, and there's a few things that go on when you go and touch one of these aircraft. It's going to go look up its location, see if it's got an image, et cetera, et cetera. So basically you can see what's happening, or the last thing that's going. If we load aircraft, you can see that this also updates kind of where it's. Here, let me burn, and so it'll show you a little bit more clearly. There we go. You can see it was displaying what number it was on, etc. All right. Well, hey, thanks for sticking with us. I appreciate you watching this video. I apologize for me jumping around, not being as smooth. We're just getting started with these demonstrations, but hopefully in time we'll cover everything and it'll all make more sense. All righty. All right. Hope you enjoy SkyGlass. Take care. Cheers.